Today's Reinvention Revisited story is with Jon Coldridge, and Jon has years of experience of scaling recruitment businesses, of mentoring business owners, and now runs a consultancy that supports business owners and founders to navigate and, well, successfully navigate probably one of the tougher challenges of their professional lives, which is the exit. So, Jon, thanks very much for doing this and welcome to the Reinvention Rooms.
That's my pleasure.
If we could kick off, JC, with your current focus, tell us a bit more about the work that you're doing now with business owners who are looking to exit and sell their businesses.
So my time now is split pretty much equally between doing advisory work, which is advising MDs of largely recruitment businesses to hit whatever their objective is. So most business owners when you start working with them say that they want to sell the business. When you actually get under the skin of it, they rarely do. Most of the time they want to make it more successful and actually enjoy working in it. So part of my role is doing that kind of classic coach, mentor, advisory kind of work. And the other side of my business is looking to buy small businesses. So in order to buy them, I'm talking to MDs of businesses typically who have founded them, and figuring out how to structure a deal that is going to mean that they can largely retire. So most of the time we're talking to people who are in their 60s, 70s. I spoke to one guy who was phenomenal, who was in his 80s, and we nearly bought his business off him, to enable them to leave their business in safe hands, get the financial benefits that they're looking for, and move on to the next stage of their lives.
Yeah. And what would you say are the biggest misconceptions of business owners who are about to sell their businesses?
How emotional it's probably going to be would be the biggest one. So our identities are really tied up in what we do. So I think most of them underestimate how important it is that their legacy is going to be cared for. I think they
Mm.
start off thinking, well, if I get everyone, it seems like everyone wants £1 million. So if there are four shareholders in the business, the business is worth £4 million.
It's
There's just one; it's only
just
worth
that,
£1 million.
yeah, that magic number for every single
It's, yeah,
business. Yeah,
everyone wants £1 million,
yeah,
irrespective of how much profit or how good their business is.
yeah.
So they start off focused on the millions,
Mm.
and sometimes their businesses are worth millions. Sometimes they're not. But I think what they underestimate is the gap that's going to be left.
Mm.
As in, what are you going to do with your time?
Is that part of the coaching
And
work that you do, is sort of to help them plan for, or certainly to consider how they're going to spend their time, their purpose beyond the business?
um, it's one of the things that I focus on to establish whether it's worth my business partner and I spending time with a particular business. Because if you say to a businessman, "We're interested in buying your business," they'll say, "Brilliant. Well, how much
Mm.
are you going to give me?" Because all businesses are for sale if you pay enough for them. But typically, we're investors. We're looking to buy something for a reasonable amount of money. So the focus is more to benefit Craig and I, so that we don't waste loads of time on people who aren't actually looking to move on. So if they don't know what they want to do when they sell their business, if that's not clear in their mind, that's a pretty good indicator that they're not actually ready to sell their business,
Mm.
unless you pay them twice what it's worth.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose
Um,
it just shows it is about money, but I suppose it's also not about money, isn't it? With people, you've set up your businesses, that
yeah,
there's a
yeah,
lot of there's heart and soul that goes into it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
There's no way in the world I'd have sold my business to the team who bought it if I weren't 100% confident, which I was and am, that they'd have carried on doing a brilliant job with it. And they've
Yeah.
done a great. I worked with the guys who bought my business off me for a really long time, and was super confident that they'd look after my legacy. Because when it came down to it, the interesting thing was when we did the deal, Amanda asked me afterwards how I felt and was I proud? And the bizarre thing was I felt very little when after we'd signed all the documents. Um, but what I was incredibly proud about was the clients that we'd worked with, the candidates that we'd worked with, and the team members that we'd hired and trained and grown over the years. So I wasn't actually proud about the money. Um, I was proud about all of the people that were left behind with really positive, warm feelings about us.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that'd be the bit that if somebody's thinking about selling their business, that'd be that's literally the first question I want the answer to. It's like, well, why do you want to sell it? What are you going to do next?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how excited are you about that?
Let's wind the clock back. How did you get into sales and business all those years ago? I mean, obviously not that long ago, JC, but
No, no, no.
yeah,
It was very recent, Charlie.
yeah.
So I always knew I was going to be a salesman. I had when I was growing up, I had loads of chat. People would say I had the gift of the gab, and I think, yeah, I was always going to go into something people related because I really like people. I really,
Mm,
um, and it turned out that recruitment was perfect because not only were the clients people, the products
mm,
were people as well. So it was the perfect blend for me. So I discovered something that I really liked doing and was really good at, and people were happy to um, pay me well for, and then
yeah,
ended up building a team that did it
yeah. Was there
very
any
successfully.
was there any sales experience in your family? Did it sort of come from somewhere
My
or
dad, my dad was a general manager for a scaffolding firm. So dad talked about business um, around the kitchen table, definitely, and definitely demonstrated that hard work was important and all that kind of thing. So
Mm,
business rather than sales, I'd say specifically. And in fairness, I started in sales, but I ended up running a business, which is like you know what it's like. It's 90% sales. If you haven't got any sales, you don't have any
mm,
other problems in a business.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you haven't got any sales, you don't have any operational issues to
yeah,
contend with. Because so yeah, sales is where most businesses succeed and fail.
yeah. And you said that you had the sort of the gift of the gab. You're always going to go into sales. What were the key? What did you learn, do you think, in the early period that was most impactful for you about how to sell or how to influence?
I think I read a book that was written in the 1920s by an insurance salesman who broke the sales process down into its constituent parts and then measured the conversion rates between the different parts. So in his business, he was measuring referrals, phone calls, initial meetings, and second meetings. And he worked out by keeping detailed records that if he had made a certain number of phone calls, he'd book a certain number of meetings, and if he had a certain number of meetings, he'd get a certain number of second meetings, and if he had a certain number of second meetings,
Mm,
he'd sell a certain amount of insurance, and that transformed me from being the kind of cheeky chappy salesman into okay, what I need to do is get myself organized, and I don't really need to worry about being a cheeky chappy salesman because I can do that. What I
mm,
need to do is make sure that I meet enough people so that the rest of it can just happen. And I'd encourage anybody when they're looking at their business to figure out what those relationships are between the different steps in the process
yeah,
so that they can make their business as predictable as possible.
yeah. What can you remember what that book was?
No, but I'll
You'd
find
send
out
it,
for you.
send it.
Yeah,
That'd be
I've
good.
I've gifted it to loads of people. When we
Yeah.
were working together at Best back in the day, that was kind of my Bible for how you how you figure out how to get somebody successful. Because
Mm,
most people who end up in sales jobs have got the interpersonal skills to chat to people,
yeah.
and most people, not all, but lots of people with great interpersonal skills haven't developed the organizational skills that go along with it. It took me ages to figure that bit out.
Mm.
And when I did figure it out, it was really dramatic, the impact it had.
And were there any key mentors or role models that you had during that time, or beyond that, even after Best in Recruitment?
There were two people. So I worked with a chap called Niven, who
Mm.
was really the first boss I liked working for, and I was pretty successful when I started working with him. And he sat me down and said, "I know you know what you're doing. My job's to look after you and to give you anything extra that you want. So how do you want to work with me?" Which was like literally every boss that I'd ever worked with before had tried to like make me submit in some kind of way. And
Mm.
Niven's approach was completely different. It was like my job's to look after you and help you. Um, so what I agreed with him was that if I was on target, he'd take me out for lunch every month, and we'd have a few beers and chew the fat. And I was always on target because I
Yeah.
worked really hard.
Yeah.
And so every month we went out for a nice lunch, um, and that was that. It was brilliant. And the other
Yeah.
person who had a big impact on me was can you remember Nick Butcher?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So Butch pretty much taught me how to write um, in from a business perspective.
Yeah.
So I'd write emails, and once he'd seen one of my Devonshire wordy tomes, as he called them, he'd say, "Colders, you can't write fucking things like that. It's too long. You gotta shorten it down." I'd be like, "All right, Butch." So I'd go away and write another email that was half as long as the first one that I'd written, and he'd be like, "No, no, no, shorter, shorter." So yeah, Butch bullied me into being able to write brief, concise, to the point
Yeah.
messages, which has really served me because as you go through your career, you deal with more senior, influential people. They get busier and busier and busier, and the information that you provide them needs to be short because otherwise they won't read it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he taught me the art of brevity.
Yeah. So he was your real life chat GPT.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess you can
Okay.
now just ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT to make it shorter and
Yeah.
shorter and shorter.
Not quite
Yeah,
so
so
much fun.
no, Butch was well ahead of his time,
Yeah.
and coming from Stroud, had a much more entertaining accent than ChatGPT.
And did those experiences, did they shape how you saw yourself as a manager? So when you were, managing people and leading staff?
I'd say that probably took a little while. I think the temptation when you first become a manager is to try and control everything. Um, and the more experience you get, I think the more focused in you get on the bit you can control is who you hire in the first place. So I genuinely now think that, and you might say, well, you're bound to say this as a recruiter, but I think picking the right person for the right job is like 90% of the management problem. And then your job as the manager is to make sure, I think, that they've got the right tools, they've got the right environment, and that you take things out of their way so that they can be good. So I'd say I can't remember what your original question was, but the whole shifting away from that control thing
Yeah.
into like trying to help people would be if I were chatting to somebody who was which I do quite a lot now, but if managing for the first time, that'd be the concept that I try and get across to them.
Yeah. And when did you start to think that it was time for you to build your own recruitment business, and how did you approach that at the start?
So I got headhunted into a job, which was called a director job, but wasn't really a director job. Um, it was like a middle manager kind of job with, so I was probably one of 6 or 7 senior managers, middle managers, whatever you want to call them in the company, and discovered that what I needed to be in order to get on in a big company was a politician. And you've known me long enough. I'm no politician. I'm like a big strength and a big weakness of mine is that I just say it as it is. So I found myself in multiple meetings where my view was different to the boss's view, and the boss wasn't interested in the fact that my view was different to the
Mm.
boss's view. What he wanted was for me to agree with him,
Mm.
and I couldn't see any benefit in that. So
Yeah.
I went and I sorted out what they wanted me to sort out, and I went and chatted to the HR director at the time, um, and said that I think I've done my job here now. I've tidied it up the bit that was in a mess. Um, have you got anything else for me to do now? Because it seems like I'm done.
Mm.
And he said, "Oh, I'm really sorry. We kind of brought you in under false pretenses. The budget that we had that we thought we had for you to grow something isn't there anymore. So I'm really embarrassed about this. How about we give you a load of money tax free as a redundancy package, and you can go off and get your next job, and we're really sorry." And
Yeah.
I said, well, let me go away and think about it. Meanwhile, thinking,
Brilliant.
brilliant.
Yeah.
So I went back that night and said to Amanda, right, we're going to start our own recruitment business. And she was like,
Yeah.
really? And we set it up together, and
Yeah.
never looked back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was easy, because we really liked it. We worked really hard, and we were doing
Yeah.
something that we were both good and passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, when you look back at it, is there anything that you would have done differently when you first set up Big Red, or was it just right the way you did it? I don't know. Was it instinctive? Was there a lot of planning? Is there anything that you would tweak looking back at it?
No, because of the money that I got from that company, and because of some savings that we'd already put aside, we had enough money to not have to bill anything for the first 12 months. Um, and that space meant that we were able to go and do a great job rather than being super focused on selling and getting the cash in, which lots of people when they start a business have financial pressure. So if somebody's thinking about starting up a company, I'd really, really recommend that they try and do it from a position of financial comfort, if that's possible. So
Yeah.
take a bit longer in the preparing and do it with some comfort. Um, I've often thought about what would have happened if we'd tried to scale the business more. So we were always really focused on maximizing profit each year, and we generally took the profit out of the business and invested it in our house and a variety of other things. So we didn't optimize for growth, we optimized for profit.
Hmm.
And I often wonder what would have happened if we'd optimized for growth and grown some massive behemoth. I actually think, given my skills, I don't think I'd have been very good at that. If I'd had a business partner who was really organized and really orderly and had those kind of skills, that might have worked. But Amanda and I, our skills complemented each other, but not in that way.
Hmm.
Um, so no, I don't think I'd have changed
Yeah.
anything. I think
Yeah.
it worked. We had a really clear idea of what we were trying to achieve. And year in, year out, we made really good profits and had really happy customers. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, I wouldn't have changed any of it. I think the the planes flying into the Twin Towers within the first week of us setting up and the global recession that followed, I would have avoided that if I could.
Hmm.
But as it happened, we were super lucky and got a customer who was growing like mad in spite of the madness that was going on around us, and we kind of hung on to their coattails for dear life, and yeah, everything went really well. So
Yeah. But what drives you, JC? What are your motivators? What keeps you showing up and doing the work that you do?
so it definitely used to be financial. I wanted to prove myself, and the way that I measured that proving myself was financially. I didn't do very well at school. I found academic work really boring. But there was definitely a fierce. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you've done it already. It's too late.
Yeah, no, it's
Of
too
course you
late.
can. Of course you can.
So probably until my mid 30s, I had this kind of fuck you energy that I really wanted to prove everybody wrong.
Mm.
Um, so that definitely fired me through. So that energy and wanting to become financially independent was the motivation to start with. Now my motivation is much more relaxed. I really like interacting with people. So my energy and my enjoyment comes from the people I work with. So I'm now motivated to work with great people and learn things from great people. It's like some of the people I'm coaching, mentoring on the coaching and mentoring side are really smart and really creative and are coming up with brilliant new things. And I get a massive buzz out of helping nudge them in the right direction and and all that kind of thing. So
So is it, have you, maybe it's the wrong word, have you mellowed in some way? Is that sort of raw, fuck you attitude which kept you going? Is it sort of mellowed slightly in a way? So it's
yeah,
the motivation's different. Yeah.
it's definitely mellowed, but it's still there. It's
Yeah.
still um that kind of it's not the first layer. You have to poke me a few times
Yeah.
before it comes. But you know what it's like as a ex-professional sportsman, that competitiveness, that aggression, that desire to do well, I don't think that goes anywhere. That's an
Mm.
integral part of who you are. Um, in my 20s and 30s, you would have it was like it was a coat that I wore with pride. Whereas now, when it comes out, I'm slightly, oh God, that's a bit embarrassing.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, but it's still there. I still want to do well. I still want to, if I'm going to bother to do something, I still
Mm.
want to do it to a
Yeah.
high standard.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And,
now I'm ruining myself and my shoulder in particular, playing too much tennis and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, if I'm involved with something,
you
one
want
of
to
my
do it,
I
you
want
want to
to do
do
it
it
well.
properly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the guys who I was just referring to, who's I don't know, I guess he's late 20s, early 30s. He he said that I brought an intensity to him and his business that he really enjoyed,
Mm.
and that was a massive compliment as far as I was concerned, because
Yeah.
his respect meant a lot because he's a really able fella, and I really liked the idea that I was bringing intensity to
Mm.
something because I didn't really see that as something that was still a core part of who I was.
Yeah.
I guess because in the olden days, my intensity was really in your face, whereas now it's a bit less. I think it's a bit less obvious, but
Yeah. It's there
maybe
for
not.
others to see. Yeah.
Mm.
And I mean, you spoke about people setting up their own businesses. You had that, what's luxury timing, but you still got to build that luxury to have that year, to have enough money to say, look, we've got a year to build it properly. I mean, is there any other advice that you'd give to people who are looking to start out their businesses, whether it's recruitment or consultancy or anything else? What sort of other pieces should people sort of put in place if they're going to set something up, do you think?
I think I saw something the other day that it was a I think it was a TED talk with a founder of a big company, a founder of a really successful startup. So he was a tech guy from America who set up some amazing business, and he said that everyone looks at the success, particularly if it's big early success, as being something that comes easy. And the point that he made was that um, the reality of starting anything is that A, you're crap at it to start with, and B, you get loads of things wrong. So the most important facet is that you've got the determination to just keep going.
Mm.
So um, that's probably the advice I'd give somebody is assume it's going to be hard and assume that you're going to have to compromise other areas of your life in order to dedicate enough time and energy to whatever it is you're setting up to get that momentum to make it work, because
Yeah.
that's probably what's going to happen if you're going to be successful at it.
Yeah.
This idea um, that you can have it all, I think is really really toxic. You can't have the fastest growing, most successful business and be the best dad and have a
Yeah.
six pack and have an amazing group of friends
Yeah.
and sleep 15 hours a day. so that you regenerate beautifully, because that's not reality.
Yeah.
You need to pick you need to pick which how you're going to blend your compromises,
Yeah.
would be my, if you want to shift something in a rapid way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And I think that there's a patience element as well that that it does seem as if people expect everything so quickly now. It's a bit of a generalization, but things just take time, don't they? It could take
mm,
years. You just got
yeah,
to
yeah.
keep doing the right thing.
Anything worthwhile takes years, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It's
Yeah.
like, if you want something insignificant, then yeah, fair enough. You might have it by
Yeah.
lunchtime. But if you want
Yeah.
something that you're going to feel moved by,
Yeah.
it's going to take a bit of time and a
Yeah.
bit of grit, and otherwise it won't be special.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah.
Yeah.
So
Last couple of questions. Is there, from your experience, what do you think separates those businesses that are sellable from those that aren't?
uh okay, so I'll sellable, everything's sellable. The bit that varies is the price and the terms that you'll engage with the buyer on. In order to maximize the value for a business, the shareholders need not to be the most important part of the business. So if I go back to Big Red, there was a point in time where, if we go back to the early days, perhaps before 2008, I basically had all of the client relationships. I had a team of, I don't know, 10 or 12 people who basically helped me deliver amazing recruitment solutions to a load of my customers. So at that point in time, let's say we made £100 a year. We Thankfully we made more than £100 a year, but just to keep the math simple, let's say we made £100 a year. At that point, because the business was so reliant on me, somebody might. I don't think anyone would have bought the business, because they would have looked at it and said, "Well, if you get hit by a bus, JC, we've had it.
Mm.
So how about I give you one times the year's profit? So I think your business is worth 100." Um, if you then fast forward 10 years, by this point, there was a management team. Marzi and a few others were running the business. I still had a bit of an impact on it, but not a very big one. Um, and at that point, somebody would have said, "Well, I'd quite like your business because it doesn't seem to need you, and it produces all this lovely money. I'll be prepared to pay you five times
Mm.
your £100, so it'd be worth five times as much." So work on systems and processes to make the business not reliant on you if you want to sell it for a decent amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Makes
basically,
sense.
turn it into a business that you don't want to sell.
Yes. Yeah. 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 That's good
Is the
advice.
reality.
Yeah. And what's the future
Um,
hold for you, Josie? What do you want to achieve over the next few years?
well, I'm having a bit of a I'm having a bit of a wrestle with that at the moment. I'm wondering whether I'm enjoying the advisory stuff I do, and I'm enjoying the kind of hands-off investing work that I do, but I'm wondering whether I should be having one last go at running something in a bit more of a hands-on kind of
Mm.
way. So I haven't started doing anything. This is fresh, hot off the press. But I'm kind of keeping, rather than looking at businesses and thinking, can I make this a decent investment? I've got my eyes open to, would I be interested in running this again?
Mm.
So yeah, the kids are less reliant on me now. They're growing up, so I've got time. Um,
Yeah.
and going
Brilliant.
back to that original point about, I enjoy all of the people, I enjoy being part of something.
Mm.
Like if I'm in the middle of something, I'll get more of that people stuff,
Yeah.
which is basically the fuel that keeps. That's the bit that I get a buzz out of. Is working with is being in the middle of all the people.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Watch this space. Yeah.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
knows?
Who knows? Yeah. Thanks
Who
very much,
knows?
JC. Really appreciate that. And
My pleasure.
and if people want to find you, what's the best route to linking in with
Um,
you?
just give yeah, linked. I'm not like a normal recruiter who's on LinkedIn all the time
Mm.
checking my messages, so I'm really happy to talk to anybody. So just give them my phone number, and tell them to say that
Yeah.
Charlie said to call. I'm super happy to talk to anyone, whether it's being helpful as an advisor, whether they want to engage me, whether they want to start their business. Yeah, there's no such thing as a wasted connection. There's no such thing as a wasted phone call. So I'm
Yeah.
really happy to talk to anyone. So feel free to give my email address or my phone number out to anybody who thinks they're interested in talking to me.
Brilliant. Appreciate that. Thanks very much, JC.